Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike. Today I want to talk to you about Haslab and how Haslab projects are losing their luster. It's not something that fans are getting as excited for or backing or getting behind as much. And it's not just Haslab, it's crowdfunding in general. Today I'm going to talk to you about 5 reasons why people are just not as excited about these crowdfunding models as they used to be, and why they aren't seeing the numbers that they used to, and why we might not see all of the tiers unlocked on this Ghost. And we've seen successes and failures, but has Hasbro learned their lesson from past mistakes? We'll talk about this and more coming up. First problem with these Haslabs is the price. $500 is a lot to ask of a project, and at one go. I've got to say that I've been very vocal. I'm just not in on this Ghost, but $500 seems to be the upper limit these days of a project like the Ghost. Now that's the same price as the Cell Barge. You got to think about the Cell Barge is a very iconic vehicle. Everyone has instant recognition and knows exactly what it is, but $500, their first project, and it was a while ago, pre-modern inflation, if you want to call it that. But this is one of those projects that today is commanding a hefty price. So it seems like the Cell Barge had everything going for it. But if you look at just numbers, they only sold a little under 8,800, something along those lines, of the Cell Barge. And the Ghost has already vastly surpassed that. But it doesn't seem like the Ghost feels like it's performing as well. Well, not performing as well as what the Haslab team expects it to. At $500, it's still even cheaper than the Unicron. And you could even argue, pound for pound, plastic for plastic, it actually is more plastic for the $500 than your Unicron. I always felt like Unicron should have been bigger, but now that I have it, and just the sheer logistics of it, the size of the box, I don't know how they could have made it much bigger. But yeah, it's a big bot, but not quite as big as I thought it should have been. But for $630, a lot of people said that this Unicron wasn't worth it, but what's it selling for now? I do feel like the Sky Striker itself sort of broke the Haslab model and the crowdfunding just a bit. Because if you really extrapolate price, this was reasonably priced as a Haslab item, but a massively overly priced Sky Striker. If you think about this, technically their pricing was that the Sky Striker is only $90. If you think about it, because they put 7 figures in there, they feel like their O-ring figures are worth $20 each. That's $140 knocked off of a $230 price tag. That's $90. I got to tell you, they would have done much better with the Sky Striker if they made 100,000 of them and put them as a fan channel exclusive or a mainline release, so the BBTSs and the Walmarts and the Targets and all of them could have carried them, even if it was only online. If they made 100,000 of them, they would have made a lot more money charging $80 for this thing as a mainline release. And the other thing is, like with this one, there's more to say, but I kind of feel like this one broke the model. It broke the Haslab model. It made it to where this isn't worth it on its own without the unlocks. So that gets kind of back to this, is the Ghost worth it without the unlocks? I think a lot of Star Wars fans, more or less modern Star Wars fans, not so much the original trilogy Star Wars fans, feel like it is. But then again, these unlock perks are nice and starting to become almost expected if you're going to spend that much money. But I don't know if we're going to get all the way to Zeb. I don't know if we're going to unlock them all. So that leads into the second point, is desirability. Now, I don't really think that the Engines of Vengeance was the most desirable project for Haslab. I mean, I think that it was a decent project for people who really knew about the car and all that. The car is cool looking, but it suffers overprice, but it also kind of suffers desirability for just the car for $350. It's, again, something that didn't achieve even funding, but it didn't achieve all the unlocks, and really didn't offer the value without the unlocks. With all the unlocks, for most collectors, it barely gave the value. And without the unlocks, it didn't even fund. I actually think the Rancor was desirable to most Star Wars collectors. And even if you were a vintage collection collector, there were a lot of vintage collection collectors considering purchasing this just because of the sheer size. Just to say, you could stick a Rancor in the Star Wars universe. Rancors are different sizes. Just like animals in nature, there are bigger versions of the Rancor. There are bigger versions. There's horses bigger than other horses. There's Rancors bigger than other Rancors. So it would have made sense. $350 I felt was a bit expensive for it, but now when you look back and looking at other projects we've gotten, it doesn't seem like it's that far of a stretch. I've got to tell you that I really think it's a product of timing versus a product of them botching the unlocks. But they did botch the unlocks. They did botch the whole campaign. It almost made it with it being poorly managed, but I really think it was a victim of too many Haslabs at once, too many other crowdfunds going on at the same time. See, the Rancor, a lot of people expected maybe a scantily clad, half-naked princess as one of their unlocks. And I bet you it would have made it. I bet you it would have. If they were like, well, this is the only way we could put this figure out. And that's what the Marvel team was saying about this Goblin Queen, that the only way they could put the Queen out, scantily clad, is to put it in this Haslab, which I don't believe one bit. But then they could have said the same thing with this Leia, and they chose not to. This figure definitely needs an update, and people really want a better modern iteration of the Slave Leia, and they passed on that. But seriously, a Haslab project should be about the Haslab project. And if the project itself isn't worth the price, then it shouldn't get funded. Now, the Ghost itself, evidently, collectors feel like it's worth the price. It's worth the $500. But is it going to get all the unlocks? I don't know. It's big. It's massive. But is it really desirable to all Star Wars collectors? I mean, it's desirable to some, not all. Not even me. I'm not backing it. So the next reason these crowdfunds are losing their luster, the Haslabs are losing their luster, because priorities are shifting. There's a change in priorities for collectors, especially collectors that collect more than one line, that are collecting multiple things and trying to be involved in multiple of these Haslabs from multiple different franchises. And when it comes to this Catslair and Super 7, Brian Flynn has pointed out the fact that he is aware of budgetary constraints and trying to ask people to spend too much at one time on his product. He spreads out his product delivery, which might actually have more to do with production, but that's what he says about it. I do want to point out that this is more expensive than the Ghost. This is only at a little over 3,000 backers, where the Ghost has around 11,000. So comparing the two, this has a much smaller market. Now, I don't know how much smaller the Thundercats market is versus Star Wars market. Is it a tenth of the size? Is the Star Wars market 10 times bigger, 20 times bigger, 100 times bigger? I don't know. But I still think it's impressive that he can make this impressive set, and he set his expectations low enough to meet the threshold. So it met the threshold just fine, but will it hit its unlocks? Yeah, I think it will. So when it comes to priorities, we don't have collectors getting the helicopter money from the government anymore. The extra money that was sent down or rained down on people while they were not allowed to go to work and they were sitting at home realizing that collecting is a lot of fun, that was a special short-term time frame that gave a boost to collecting markets, and we don't have that anymore. Now we have the absolute reverse or inverse of that situation, where people are now going back to work and in some cases working 5 jobs to get by. They don't have the extra $500 to drop on one of these projects like they did back then, where they got the $500 for free and easy come, easy go. Nowadays, hard come, really hard to let go of your money. Which leads us into this. This isn't even a crowdfund, but it starts to make me wonder, will the NECA sewer lair actually get made? If it's a loss for them to make it, will they still make it? I mean, a companies that's in the business to make money and make a profit, will they make something if they only sell 300 or 500 of these? I kind of think that they will, because I kind of think that it's not a crowdfund, and NECA puts their stuff back out, and Turtles is one of their top performing brands, if not their absolute top performing brand. So I actually think that this will get made, even if they only sell 500, and then they'll just sell it again because they have the tooling, which this thing's got to be one of the most profitable products that they've made, and so why wouldn't they put it out again? They would be smart about it too. They would put it out, they'd let the people who spent the $300 get it, enjoy it, have it, feel special, and then watch the secondary market where they sell for $500 or $800 on the secondary market. But the problem with this is that you're supposed to have multiple different modules and have different rooms, so you're in it for $1,000 if you're buying all the rooms and stuff. That's crazy, but maybe they're just crazy enough to do it. And maybe they're just going to reuse the same mold anyway for the other rooms. So the fourth reason on why Haslabs are losing their luster, I really think resellers are not in this like they used to. There are people that are like, yeah, I think I'll get a second one to resell. Before, there were people getting 10, 15, 20 to resell when it came to like the Galactus. Well, I actually I didn't know directly, but I knew of a person that bought 15 sail barges and sold them all for $1,500, just straight up. As soon as they arrived, $1,500, who wants one? Sold them all. I think he kept one for himself and sold the rest of them within a day. Just all gone. And that's something that you're just not seeing as much of anymore. I think that some retailers will buy some and stock some and try to double their money. But people aren't doubling their money these days on these projects. So just like you get back to the Sky Striker. People are trying to double their money on the Sky Striker and it's not working. And the best solution that I've seen for people selling theirs, so I'm not selling mine, I didn't buy a bunch of them, but they're trying to break them up into selling figures in one lot for about 200 and then trying to sell the Sky Striker for 200 to almost double their money. And it's not working. It's really not working in doubling the money because the value play's not there. And this project killed the O-ring line. It really did. The O-ring line stopped with this and crossovers. People do want to villainize resellers when it comes to Haslabs, which is fine. It's great. Villainize them. It's fine. But we're probably going to see, as many of these crowdfunds continue to see lower and lower numbers, lower production numbers, that down the road desirability for these out of production items are going to grow. Now, these are some of the largest numbers in Haslab for the Sentinel and the Galactus. They are, but I'm starting to see more and more of these show up for pretty close to what the funding amount was. And so that's not much. There's not much profit there for resellers to bother tying up $400 or $350 for a year and a half for future projects when they start to see kind of the loss of the resale value on some of these projects, especially the ones that crack 20,000. So the last reason that these Haslabs or crowdfunds are losing their luster is from fatigue. I think that people are just kind of getting tired of every time they turn around having to figure out how to fund a $300 to $500 purchase to $750 purchase, and it does wear on you. It is fatiguing, especially when you have to wait for the product. So it's almost like you got a constant pipeline of product that is in the pipeline. You're waiting for it to arrive that you've already paid for. It should be more exciting. It should be like a major event, but it kind of just starts to feel like another Monday or another Tuesday. And with that, it's losing its luster. The fatigue of constantly having another one of these around the corner. I know it was exciting back in the day, but it's fatiguing because it doesn't feel as special as it used to, because the projects aren't as big and they aren't as iconic as they used to be. I actually can see collectors, especially G.I. Joe Classified collectors, getting more excited about this Trouble Bubble for $55 than a $300 his tank. And here's why. Because you can get a couple of them. They'll be easy to get. It'll be a more or less instant gratification type of a purchase. And this is a smaller vehicle that you can have 3 of for way less than one his tank. And you can put different figures in there. Of course, you would want to get one for your Cobra Commander, and then one for your Destro, and one for your, Baroness. But it's funny that something like this, I'm personally more excited for this than getting my his tank I've already paid $300 for years ago. But this thing to me is just more fun and more exciting. And of course, I had this as a kid. I didn't have a his tank till way late in my collecting back in the day. And so for me, I identify with this a little bit more. But I really think the fatigue on these bigger, more expensive projects and bringing some of these vehicles to retail that belong at retail for the most part, this is more exciting. Same thing about the Vamp. I personally can't say I'm ultra excited for the Vamp, but I am happy it's not going to be a crowdfund. A lot of people were speculating this is going to be a $300 or $280 or some ridiculous nonsense. And now we don't know the price yet, though. We don't know the price. I mean, let's just be honest. We don't know the price, but we assume, I think it's going to be $80. I still stand by that being $80, and then the missile launcher being probably the $55 price point. So that would make sense in my mind, but we'll see when actual pricing comes out. But I think stuff like this is more exciting. It's mainline. You get multiple of them and not break the bank. But what do you think? Are Haslabs losing their luster, or are you still as excited as you were for the Razor Crest before they blew it up? Like and subscribe. Tydirium Hanger out.